With the ODI World Cup final set to take the center stage at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad, the eyes of the millions, if not the billions, are casted on Team India and its opponents Australia as the two nations meet in the swimming clash. Hosts India will be the hot favourites to clinch the World Cup, but in-form Australia are in search of their sixth title. The battle between the two nations will be a repeat of the 2003 edition, as Rohit Sharma's men look to get revenge on their opposite numbers, having also lost in the World Test Championship final earlier in the year. So to discuss in detail on the World Cup final, Gautam Sodhi joins me, Aditya Pimpale, in the special edition of WION Podcast. So Gautam, today is the day and we are set for the ODI World Cup final as India takes center stage against the Aussies, and it is no bigger occasion than this. History could be scripted for the Indian team as they conquer the world, but more importantly, they need to make sure that they get over the line against the Aussies. And my first question is, how bigger is this occasion before we go deep into this one?
Hi Aditya, this is as big an occasion as any we can think of when it comes to a grand stage in cricket. India versus Australia, two of the most dominating teams, two powerhouses in world cricket, two teams on the top of their prowess. And the way they are going ahead, 1.3 lakh people inside the Narendra Modi Stadium on Sunday would be hoping for a great contest, and so would be billions watching all across the world.
Okay, this has been a contest that has been making for the last 2 decades, I guess. If someone like we who watched that 2003 final when India were beaten by Australia, there was plenty of pain, plenty of agony during that time. But the Indian team has just revitalized themselves. They have just rejuvenated the way that they have conquered the world this time around. 10 matches played, 10 victories in this World Cup. And this team has been fluent in every aspect. So Gautam, 20 years, since we lost that 2003 final to Australia. What do you think is different thing altogether in those 2 decades? What has changed over the years?
The scars of 2003 final are still there. It itches every day. And to see that India have come a long way since 2003 final where they lost by 125 runs. That Australian team was as good a team as any the cricketing game has seen. But 20 years later in 2023, this Indian team is perhaps the best to walk into the final of a World Cup. The momentum they are carrying is unbelievable, and to see that they have taken leaps and bounds of the improvement is there, and how they can do it on the big stage is really one to see.
Oh, of course, how this Australian side, how this Indian side will be developing upon, We will have our eyes on all those things that will happen during the match as well. You can tune into our website as well as to our channel as well, where you can get all the live updates. But Gautam, let us go back down the years. 2007, we lost that 2003 final. We come into the 2007 World Cup with lots of anticipation. Excitement was there, but the bubble was bursted. Rahul Dravid's Team India lost, and they lost twice at the group stages, an early exit. It was hard to take by, and the Australians on the other hand, they went on to win the World Cup that year. So can we see Rahul Dravid with a shot at redemption this time, something like the Kabir Khan of Chak De India?
1.3 billion people in India are hoping for Rahul Dravid to do a Shah Rukh Khan of Chak De India, and why not? And Rahul Dravid was at the helm of things when India lost to Bangladesh in one of the most shocking contest in Indian cricket history in the World Cup, and then we got bored out of the World Cup after losing to Sri Lanka. That was an utter low moment in Indian cricket, and although things changed, the flip of the coin happened quite quickly with MS Dhoni being captain and India winning all the trophies in next 6 years. But those scars of losing to Australia and hoping to beat a great mighty Australian team in the World Cup final is still a dream, and this dream can be achieved, can be realized. On Sunday, it's a big game. It's India-Australia. India has everything working for them. They have the performers, they have the match winners. Stars seem to be aligned for this Indian team. It's going to be a well jam-packed stadium, and all eyeballs would be on those 11 men wearing blue jersey to accomplish the dream of 1.3 billion people.
Oh yes, of course. There will be a lot of millions, if not billions, who will be keeping their eyes on their TV sets as well as their radio sets as well. But Gautam, a big question was how this Australian team gets into the transition as well. I remember they lost to India in the 2011 World Cup, and that was the phase, Ricky Ponting, he left the captaincy, Matthew Hayden no longer part of the team, Simons had gone, Gilchrist had gone, no likes of Bevan and all. They went into a transition. Everyone thought that is the end of the Australian team. But then in 2015, they win the World Cup. They show that they still have plenty of power in their prowesses. But then, there was that ups and downs, But Australia, I think, have always got the answers, Just when we thought that they are not good enough, they once again are in the World Cup final. So is this Australian side the best cricketing nation apart from India, Because they always got an answer. They always had that process in them. So what is your take on the Australian side?
Australian team is like, the Germany, the Spain of football, the Brazil of football. The yellow colors have something to do with sports in general. You see Brazil winning World Cup 5 times. Australia has won it 5 times. Both these teams are ruthless in their own ways. This Australian team, an Australian cricket team in general, is perhaps the most ruthless side in the last 100 years. Yes, we talk of the West Indies for 3 decades. They were unbelievable. We didn't watch them. Our grandparents, our parents perhaps watched them play. And they still to date say that they were, nearest to God. Those people were nearest to God. So I think what we have seen over the years is that the Australian team cannot be discounted at any given stage. India played extremely well to beat them in Chennai. We were 1 for 3 or 5 for 3 at one stage during the chase. But Kohli and Rahul somehow managed to pull it off. And India would be needing a lot from their batting order to do the same this time as well. I'm not putting Aussies on the back seat. They'll be up front in the face of the Indian team. And we should be practical. We should be hoping for the best, but we should be practical enough to understand if the other outcome comes, if Australia upset the Indian team, then we should be taking it up front.
Oh yes, of course. You were mentioning about some comparisons, yellow color and then Brazil and all. Let me have my comparison. Argentina were blue, India were blue. They had the GOAT Lionel Messi, who won the World Cup last year. India have 2 World Cups. Argentina had 2 World Cups last year. India might win the 3rd World Cup. India have a GOAT in form of Virat Kohli. So there is quite a big scenario in those similarities as well. But Gautam, coming back to the pack of the things, the Indian team, the way that they have been playing, Mohammad Shami, let us speak about him, because if there comes a point, who is going to be the man of the tournament, there are arguments that Virat Kohli is one of the front runners. But I guess for me it is Mohammad Shami, because the way that he has just walked into this Indian team, he didn't play in any of the first 4 matches. He comes into the team in a blessing in disguise, and then it has been a total no-nonsense approach, ruthless with what he has done. Your take on Mohammad Shami?
Aditya, in cricket there is an old saying that goes that batters win you matches, bowlers win you tournaments. And this is a perfect scenario for how Mohammad Shami and Virat Kohli has fared in this Indian team. Virat Kohli has been among runs, has always been among runs. He wakes up, he scores runs, he goes to sleep. That's like his habit. But Mohammad Shami coming up after 4 games, picking 3 fifers, including a 7-wicket haul in a World Cup semi-final. That's an astonishing feat for any bowler ever. No one has ever taken it in the past 12 editions. So, to consider what he has done, what impact he has had with the ball in hand is impeccable in so many ways. If India goes on to win the World Cup, highest regards to Virat Kohli for being the greatest batter of this modern generation, no doubt about that. But for me, again, it has to be Mohammad Shami, the player of the tournament. And we might not ever see a bowler of this capability doing such things on a World Cup stage again. So to understand the magnitude of it, just bow down to Shami and give the player of the tournament award to him.
Of course, I still remember, Kane Williamson getting it despite losing the final in 2019. Sachin Tendulkar in 2003 as well. So no shouts that even if whatever the result is, Mohammad Shami is going to be the front runner. Gautam, one important question. What does the Indian team need to be wary of this Australian side in this final? Because we saw what Glenn Maxwell did, despite being 91 for 7, and they have got all the tools in the arsenal. So what is the thing that should concern the Indian team going into the final? I know it's not going to be easy, but it's not going to be that difficult as well. But what should be the Indian team looking forward to?
Well, they shouldn't be complacent in the first play. They shouldn't be overconfident of their abilities, thinking that they have really dominated everyone in the first place and they would do it against the Aussies. And I think Indian team is mature enough, is professional enough to not have this approach heading into the final. What they need to be wary of is the 11 Australian players with possibly the mentality of 22 players with them. They are as strong mentally as anyone in the game. So India not only has to perform well on the field, they have to make sure that they are breaking the mentality somewhere in this match to ensure they are on the top. Otherwise, you cannot just push Aussies back against the wall and think that they will not come back. The Afghanistan game was the greatest example of it. They were 91 for 7. They chased 292 with no wicket loss. You cannot discount the Aussies. Indian captain should be nervous, and if this nervousness leads you to a third world title, then it's best for business.
Of course, Gautam, the big $1 million question now: who is going to win the World Cup? I know your answer, but still I need to ask you, who is going to have that hand on the trophy? I know India has a finger on it, but will they have it with their hands?
Let me be diplomatic for the one last time, Aditya. My heart says India, my mind says Australia. It's 60-40 in favor of India for me, but I'm, all for until it happens, till the last ball is bowled. So to me, at least for now, it's India 60-40, but even if Australia goes on to win the World Cup, I won't be surprised for a millisecond. So that's how it is.
Okay, you are being too much diplomatic. I won't be diplomatic. I will be supporting my country. India are going to win the World Cup, and that is what I think, and that is what our listeners should also think as well. You can just cast into your votes as well on our comment section on the YouTube channel, as well as on our social media handles as well. And this is what we had for this edition of the WION podcast in the pre-World Cup final build-up, and we will get you back on more after the World Cup final gets over. You can follow us on our social media handles on YouTube, Facebook, and on X as well, and also on Instagram as well. And do make sure that you tune into all those aspects as well, and do put your comments on who is going to win the World Cup. For now, from me and the rest of the team, goodbye and thanks for joining.